What's up, guys? Ano po dito tawin? Percy Jackson. And Percy Jackson.
Look, I didn't want to be a half-blood. If you're reading this because you think you might be, my advice is to close this book right now. Believe whatever lie your mom or dad told you about your birth and try to lead a normal life. Being a half-blood is dangerous. It's scary. Most of the time it gets you killed in painful, nasty ways. If you're a normal kid reading this because you think it's fiction, great, read on. I envy you for being able to believe that none of this ever happened. But if you recognize yourself in these pages, if you feel something stir inside, stop reading immediately. You might be one of us. And once you know that, it's only a matter of time before they sense it too. They'll come for you. Don't say I didn't warn you. My name is Percy Jackson. I'm 12 years old till a few months ago. I was a boarding school student at Fancy Academy, a private school for troubled kids in upstate New York. Am I a troubled kid? Yeah, you could say that. I could start at any point in my short, miserable life to prove it, but things really started going back. Last May, when our 6th grade class took a field trip to Manhattan. 28 mental case students and two teachers on a yellow school bus heading to Museum of Art to look at ancient Greek and Roman stuff. I know it sounds like torture. Most fancy field trips were. But Mr. Bugman, our Latin teacher, was leading this trip, so I had hopes. Mr. Bumpin was this middle-aged guy in a moderated wheelchair. He had thinner hair and a fluffy beard and a layered gray jacket, which always smelled like coffee. You wouldn't think he'd be cool, but he told stories and joked and let us play games in class. He also had this awesome collection of Roman armor and weapons. So he was the only teacher whose class didn't put me to sleep. I hoped the trip would be okay. At least I hoped for once I wouldn't get in trouble. Boy, was I wrong. See, bad things happen to me on field trips. Like at my 5th grade school, we went to Senna's battlefield. I had this accident with a war cannon, and I wasn't aiming for the school bus, but of course I got expelled anyway. And before that, at my 4th grade school, when we took a behind-the-scenes tour of the Madeline World Shark Park pool, I sort of hit the wrong lever on the catwalk, and our class took an unplanned swim. And the time before that, well, you get the idea. The trip I was demanded to be good. All the way into New York, I put up with Fancy Snoopfit, the freckled, red-headed girl hitting my best friend Grover in the back of the head with chunks of peanut butter and ketchup sandwiches. Grover was an easy target. He was scrawny, he cried when he got frustrated. He must have held back several grades because he was the only 6th grader with acne and the start of a crispy beard on his chin. On top of that, he was crippled. He had a note excusing him from PE for the rest of his life. Because he had some kind of muscle disease in his leg, he walked funny, like every step hurt him. But don't let that fool you. You should have seen him run when it was enchilada day in the cafeteria. Anyway, Nancy was throwing sads of sandwiches that stuck in his curly brown hair, and she knew I wouldn't do anything back to her because I was already on probation. The headmaster had threatened me with death in school suspension if anything bad happened, embarrassing, or even mildly entertaining happened on this trip. I'm going to kill her, I mumbled. Grover tried to calm me down. It's okay, I like peanut butter. He nodded another piece of Nancy's lunch. That's it, I started to get up, but Grover pulled me back to my seat. You're already on probation, he reminded me. You'll know who will get blamed if anything happens. Looking back on it, I wish I'd dunked Nancy's head right then and there. In school, suspension would have been nothing compared to the mess I was about to get myself into. Mr. Bumpkins led the museum tour. He rode up from in his wheelchair and guide us through the big archery exhibit. Past marble statues and glass cases full of really old black and orange stuff. It blew my mind that this stuff had survived for 2,000, 3,000 years. Guide us around a 13-foot tall stone statue with a big on top. Started telling us how it was a grave remark, safe for a girl about our age. He told us about the carving on the side. I was trying to listen to what he had to say, but it was kind of interesting. But everyone around me was talking, and every time I told them to shut up, the other teacher, Mrs. Dodd, would give. Mrs. Dodd was this little math teacher from Georgia who always wore a black leather jacket even though she was 50 years old. She looked mean enough to ride a Harley right into your locker. She had come to fancy halfway through the year when our last math teacher had a nervous breakdown. From her first day, Mrs. Dodd loved and figured I was an evil spawn. She would point out her crooked finger at me and say, "Now, honey, real sweet," and I knew I was going to get after-school detention for a month. One time she even made me erase answers out of an old math workbook till midnight. I told Grover I didn't think Mrs. Dodd was human. He looked at me real serious and said, "You're absolutely right." Mr. Bunkin kept talking about Greek furniture art. Finally, Nancy Bunkin smirked about something. Guy on the scale, and I turned around and said, "Will you shut up?" It came out louder than I meant it to. The whole group laughed. Mr. Bunkin stopped his story. "Mr. Jackson," he said, "do you have a comment?" My face was totally red. I said, "No, sir." Mr. Bunkin pointed to one of the pictures on the scale. "Perhaps you'll tell us what this picture represents." I looked at the canvas and felt a flash of relief because I actually recognized it. "That's Kronos eating his kids, right?" "Yes." I said, obviously not satisfied. "And he did this because, well, now my brain to remember. Kronos was the king god and God?" Mr. Bunkin asked. I corrected myself. "And he didn't trust his kids who were the gods, so Kronos ate them, right?" But his wife gave baby Zeus and gave Kronos a rock to eat instead. And later when Zeus grew up, he tricked his dad, Kronos, into barfing up his brothers and sisters. "Ew," said one of the girls behind me. And so there was this big fight between the gods and the Titans. I continued, and the gods won. Some snickered from the group. Behind me, Nancy Bunkin mumbled to a friend, "Like we're going to use this in real life. Like it's going to say on our job application. Please explain why Kronos eat his kids." And that's why Mr. Jackson, to an excellent question. Does this matter in real life? "Shut up," Dustin mumbled. Grover mumbled. "Shut up," Nancy hissed, her face even brighter red than her hair. At least Nancy got part too. Mr. Bunkin was the only one who ever caught her saying anything wrong. He had rabbit ears. I thought about his question and shrugged. "I don't know, sir." "I see," Mr. Bunkin was disappointed. "Well, have credit, Mr. Jackson. Zeus did indeed feed Kronos a mixture of mustard and wine, which made him dishonor his other 5 children, who, of course, being immortal gods, had been living and growing up completely in the Titan's stomach. The gods defeated their father and sliced him to pieces with his own scythe, shattering his remains to Tartarus, the darkest part of the underworld. On the happy note, it's time for lunch. Mrs. Dodd, would you leave us back outside?" The class drifted off, the girls holding their stomachs, the guys punching each other around and acting like Grover and I were about to call them when Mr. Bunkin said, "Mr. Jackson." I knew what was coming. I told Grover to keep going, then I turned to Mr. Bunkin. "Sir?" Mr. Bunkin had this look that wouldn't let you go. The same brown eyes that would have been 1,000 years old and had seen everything. "You must learn the answer to my question," he told me. "About the Titans?" "About real life, and how your studies apply to it." "Oh. What you learn from me," he said, "is vividly important, and I expect you to treat it as such. I will only accept the rest from you, Percy Jackson." I wanted to get angry. This guy pushed me so hard. I mean, sure, it was kind of cool on me. Tournament day when he shouted, and the student fell water and shouted, "What ho!" and challenged his sword point against to run to the board and name every Greek and Roman person's son who had ever lived and their mothers, and what gods they worshipped. But Mr. Bumpkins expects me as good as everyone else, despite the fact I have dyslexia and attention difficult disorder. I have never made above a C- in my life. No, he didn't expect me to be good. He expected me to be better, and I couldn't learn all the names and facts, much less spell them correctly. I mumbled something about trying harder while Mr. Bumpkins took one long sad look at the scale, like he had been at this girl's funeral. He told me to go outside and eat my lunch. The class gathered on the front porch of the museum where we could watch the foot traffic along Fifth Avenue. Overheard a huge storm was brewing, which clouds blackened than I'd ever seen over the city. I figured maybe it all was global warming or something, because the weather all across New York State had been weird since Christmas. We'll have massive snowstorms, floodings, wildfires, and lightning strikes. I couldn't have been surprised if this was a tornado blowing in. No one else wanted to know. Some of the guys were peeling pigeons. Why? With lunch crackers. Sally Bumpkin was trying to pickpocket something from a lady's purse, and of course Mrs. Dodds wasn't seeing a thing. Grover and I sat on the fountain away from the others. We thought that maybe if we did this, everybody wouldn't know we were from that school. The school for loser freaks who couldn't make it otherwise. Detention, Grover asked. Nah, I said, not from Bumpkins. I wish he'd lay off me sometimes. I mean, I'm not a genius. Grover didn't say anything for a while. Then when I thought he was going to give me some deep comment to make me feel better, he said, "Can I have your apple?" It didn't have much of an appetite, so I let him have it. I watched the screens of cabs going down Fifth Avenue and thought about my mom's apartment. Only a little ways uptown from where we sat. I haven't seen her since Christmas. I wanted to jump in a taxi and head home. I wanted so bad to jump in a taxi and head home. She hugged me and be glad to see me, but she'd be disappointed too. She sent me right back to fancy, reminding me that I have to try harder. Even if this was my sixth school in 6 years, I was probably going to be kicked out of it. I wouldn't be able to stand that sad look she gives me. Mr. Bumpkins packed his wheelchair at the base of the head counter. He ate celery while he read a paperback novel. A red umbrella stuck up from the back of his chair, making it look like a normal cafe table. I was about to unwrap my sandwich when Nancy Wolfman appeared in front of me with her ugly friend. I guess she got tired of stealing from the tourists and dumped her half-eaten lunch in Grover's lap. Oops, she grinned at me with her crooked teeth. Her freckles were orange, as if somebody had spray painted her face with liquid Cheetos. I tried to stay cool. School policy had told me a million times, count to 10, get control of your temper. But I was so mad my mind was blank. A wave rose in my ears. I didn't remember touching her, but the next thing I knew, Nancy was sitting on her butt in the fountain, screaming, "Percy, touch me!"
And let me tell you something.
Mrs. Doss man-faced next to us. Some of the kids were whispering, "Did you see the water? Like it grabbed her." I didn't know what they were talking about. All I knew was that I was in trouble again. As soon as Mrs. Dodd was sure poor little Nancy was okay, promising to get her a new shirt at the museum gift shop, etc., etc., Mrs. Dodds turned on me. There was a tiny flame in her eyes, as if I'd done something she'd been waiting for all semester. Now, honey, I know, I grumbled. A month erasing workbooks. That wasn't the right thing to say. Come with me, Mrs. Dot said. Wait, Grover yelled. It was me. I pushed her. I stared at him stunned. I couldn't believe he was trying to cover for me. Mrs. Dot scared Grover to death. She stared at him so hard, his whiskey chin trembled. I don't think so, Mr. Underwood, she said. But you will stay here. Looked at me desperately. Grover looked at me desperately. It's okay, man, I told him. Thanks for trying. Honey, Mrs. Dodds barked at me. Now. Nancy smarted at me. I gave her my climax, I'll kill you later stare. Then I turned to face Mrs. Dodds, but she wasn't there. She was standing at the museum entryway, way up at the top of the stairs, gesturing for me to come up. How did she get up there so fast? I have moments like that a lot when my brain falls asleep or something, and the next thing I know, I missed something, as if a puzzle piece fell out of the universe and left me staring at the blank space behind it. The school counselor told me this was part of my ADHD. My brain misplaced memorizing things. I wasn't so sure. I went after Mrs. Dodds. Halfway up the steps, I glared back at Grover. He was looking pale, cutting through his eyes between me and Mr. Bumble, like he wanted Mr. Bumble to notice what was going on. But Mr. Bumble was absorbed in his novel. I looked back up at Mrs. Dodds. Had disappeared again. She was now inside the building at the top of the entry hall. Okay, I thought. She was going to make me buy a new shirt for Nancy at the gift shop, but apparently that wasn't the plan. I followed her deeper into the museum. When I finally caught up to her, we were back in the Greek and Roman section. Except for us, the gallery was empty. Mrs. Dodds stood with her arms crossed in front of a big molten statue of the Greek gods. She was making this weird noise in her throat, like growling. Even without the noise, I would have been nervous. It's weird being alone with a teacher, especially Mrs. Dodds. Something about the way she looked at the frizz, as if she wanted. You've been giving us problems, honey, she said. I did the same thing and said, yes, ma'am. She tugged on the cuffs of her leather jacket. Did you really think you would get away with it? The look in her eyes was between mad and it was evil. The look in her eye was beyond mad. It was evil. She's a teacher, I thought nervously. It's not like she's going to hurt me. I said, I'll try harder, ma'am. Thunder took the building. We are not fools, Percy Jackson, Mrs. Dodds said. It was only a matter of time before we found you. Out clueless, and you will suffer less pain. I didn't know what she was talking about. All I could think of was that a teacher must have found the illegal stash of candy I'd been selling out of my dorm room. Or maybe they realized I got an essay on I got my essay on Tom's training from the internet without even reading the book, and now they were going to take away my grades, or worse, they were going to make me read the book. Well, she demanded. Ma'am, I don't know. Your time is up, she hissed. That's the weirdest thing. Then the weirdest thing happened. Her eyes began to glow like orbs. Her fingers clutched around, turning into. Her jacket melted into large, leathery wings. She wasn't human. She was a shivering hag with bat wings and claws and a mouth full of yellow fangs. She was about to slice me into ribbons. Then things got even stranger. Mrs. Bonch, who's been out in front of the museum a few minutes ago, wheeled his wheelchair into the doorway of the gallery, holding a pen in his hand. What ho, Percy, he shouted, and tossed the pen through the air. Mrs. Dodds yelled at me. What a youth! I dodged and felt cotton splashes in the air next to my ear. When I reached the ballpoint pen out of the air, but when it hit my hand, it wasn't a pen anymore. It was a sword. Mr. Bonds dove sword which she always used on tournament days. Mrs. Dodd span towards me with a murderous look in her eyes. My knees were jelly. My hands were shaking so much. I almost dropped the sword. She shuddered. "Die, honey," and she flew straight at me. Absolute terror ran through my body, and I did the only thing that came naturally. I swung the sword. The metal blade hit her shoulder and passed clean through her body as if she was made of water. Hiss. Mrs. Dodds was a sandcastle and a power fan. She was exploding into yellow powder and evaporating on the spot, leaving nothing but the smell of sulfur and a dying screech, and a chill of evil into the air, as if those two glowing red eyes were still watching me. I was alone. There was a ballpoint pen in my hand, and Mr. Bunkins wasn't there. Nobody was there but me. My hands were still trembling. My lunch must have been tamed with magic mushrooms or something. Had I imagined the whole thing? I went back outside, and it had started to rain. Grover was sitting by the fountain. A museum map hung over his head. Maddie Butman was still standing there, soaked from her swim in the fountain, trembling to her ugly friends. When she saw me, she said, "I hope Mrs. Kim whipped your butt." I said, "Who?" "Our teacher, duh." I blinked. We had no teacher named Mrs. Kim's. I asked Nancy what she was talking about. She just rolled her eyes and turned away. I asked Grover where Mrs. Dodds went. He said, "Who?" But he paused first, and he wouldn't look at me, so I thought he was messing with me. "Not funny, man," I told him. "This is serious." Thunder boomed overhead. I saw Mr. Bunkins sitting under his red umbrella and reading his book as if he never moved. I went over to him. He looked a little distracted. "Ah, that would be my pen. Please bring your own writing pencils in the future, Mr. Jackson." I handed Mr. Bunkins his pen. I hadn't even realized I was still holding it. "Sir," I said, "where's Mrs. Dodds?" He blinked at me. He stared at me blankly. "Who?" "The other camp for Mrs. Dodds, the P.L.S. teacher." He slumped forward and sat forward, looking mildly concerned. "Percy, there is no Mrs. Dodds on this trip. As far as I know, there has never been a Mrs. Dodds at Fancy Academy. Are you feeling all right?"